Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is Alex Hayes. Hi, Alex.
Hello.
It's great to have you on the podcast. So you and I met at the FEM Summit, that was put on by Christy Clayton, and Christy is a dear friend. And I think I recorded 2 podcasts with her, so I'm going to include the link to those episodes in the show notes so our listeners can listen to it as well. And that was a great conference, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I believe that was my 4th time going. So I've had incredible experiences attending those.
That's awesome. And you told me what you do, and I go, okay, you have to be on my podcast because I want to talk about that. I want to talk about how we're going to talk about basically sales and how to charge the right price for it, which is so important because many entrepreneurs, they don't have it quite right. And I think it's very important to charge for what your value is. So first of all, I'm going to start with the bio, and then we'll get into our conversation.
Okay.
So, Alex, you're the president at Boost Pricing, a sales training company uniquely focused on teaching people to price higher based on your value, not their value, and command the prices they deserve, which is incredible. And you lead the Boost team with a powerful blend of strategic insight, operational excellence, and people-first leadership. You're passionate about helping business and people understand and claim their value, which is super important. How did you get into this line of work?
Thank you for the introduction. So my background has been sales and sales leadership. And the reason why I'm passionate about that is because I find that there's so much opportunity to truly lead and manage sales teams and sales organizations within a team. Oftentimes, what I have seen is people who are great at sales get promoted into sales leadership, and they're not great at leadership. And when I have had the opportunity to lead sales teams and truly be there for them and help them grow and see their unique value, I've seen exponential growth and people flourish and appreciate having someone there as a true manager and leader, both to hold them accountable and to help them grow as individuals. And so I've always been really passionate about the concept of speaking to people about their personal value and what they add to an organization and what they add to a team and what they add in this world. It's something I've always been really passionate about and why I like leadership so much. My business partner, Casey Brown, founded Boost Pricing and about 15 years ago. And I had the opportunity to hear her speak, and the message resonated with me so deeply at the time that I brought in the organization to learn the methodologies for my own team, and have since then been a follower of the brand and the messaging, and have had the opportunity to come on as their integrator a few years ago. So that's the wild journey that got me to Boost.
Amazing. So let's talk about the methodology. What is the philosophy behind the methodology?
Yeah. So the background here being, so our founder is more of what I would say a pricing strategist, and she's Six Sigma certified and has this deep technical background in pricing. And she had been telling this story that no matter how good the strategy is on pricing, if you're putting it in the hands of people who don't know how to execute on it or are too scared to execute on it, it's not going to make a difference really. So you can have a phenomenal strategy. We say like an A plus strategy on the strategic part of pricing, but if you have a C execution, you're not going to get the margins and the value that you're worth, right?
Right.
And so really for us, it's pulling away a little bit from the strategic aspect of pricing. I think a lot of, especially if you think about entrepreneurs and smaller businesses, oftentimes we know there's opportunity to get more margin. We have that in the back of our mind. Either a competitor is charging more or we have, a number or a goal in mind. And the roadblock is very mental. And so for us, it's focusing that energy on the mental. What sort of mindset shifts does a team need and does a culture need to capture value, communicate it, and then really own it? And not just the negotiation process, but really through the entire experience of working with your organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what are some of the mistakes that you see business owners make in terms of pricing?
I think the biggest one is knowing that there's opportunity and not moving forward with it. If
Like
you
what? Give me an example.
So if there's, I mean, just simply saying, if you are charging $2,500 for time, a widget, whatever it is, we work in professional services to nuts and bolts. It's across the board. Um, if you know that you can, even sometimes on some items for some clients, charge more and you're leaving money on the table,
That's true.
right? And there's a lot of things that go into that. One of them is the complexity. And I think that all of us, the world is so complex that we shy away from complexity. So having a flat price or a flat margin on something is easier, right? And so being able to hit the easy button to say, it's $5,000 and that's what it is, whether the person values this or not, whether it's going to make wild change and impact in their life or their business or not, this is the price, right?
Right.
And so if we take two steps back and say, I can and should price based on the value that this individual or this organization is going to have with this experience. What is that worth? Right? What
Yeah,
is the
absolutely.
value I'm bringing worth?
So how
That's
would you give me an example, like a specific example of of how do you evaluate that for a client?
I love that. So, and it's so funny because many times people come to us for the true strategic aspect of it. They want us to come to them and say, "Okay, so you currently charge 19 cents for this screw, and I want you to charge 25 cents for it. Go test it in the market." Here's the thing though, is again, that's pricing strategy. We don't do any price setting. Because an owner and founder knows what they want to charge almost all the time. And so instead, I say, founder, what do you want to charge? And what's the roadblock for you getting there? And almost 100% of the time, they say it's outside forces, right? While we're receiving downward price pressure, we're receiving, our clients have seen multiple price increases because of tariffs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I say, okay, but has your team asked for 25 cents a screw? Well, no, because we're receiving all of X, Y, and Z, right? And so some of it is the discovery process for us of saying, where are you now? Where do you want to be? And understanding what their version of the roadblocks are to get there. But realistically, once we're in and talking with a team with pricing power, and that's really the difference, right? So if you have a sales organization where your team can either set price or discount, discounting's a dangerous game that we forget about sometimes. But if they're communicating value, they're really oftentimes the culprits to and the people that hold all the power to increase your overall margin for the organization. So we come in then with this idea that we want to get to 25 cents a screw, and we do the same thing with them. We help them understand the finances of the business and what 1% of margin increase could do to the bottom line and the impact it could have to the business. This goes back to my whole love and of people understanding their personal value and the value they bring. I think oftentimes sales professionals understand the value they bring from a top line revenue perspective, but they often forget about the bottom line impact that they have and how that ripple affects to the rest of the organization. So we set the tone with you have power. It's not just with discounting and revenue, but it's with this entire organization. Let's tap into that. Let's get deep into it and help you tell the story of your personal value and the value of your company so that people want to pay you more because they want to work with you and not your competitors.
Absolutely. So does it happen that sometimes you will ask the founder, how much do you want to charge for this? And they will tell you and you go, that's too high.
No,
Good.
no, and I think again, it's we do have a unique opportunity to work almost exclusively with best in class and better in class companies. And so really my process to figure that out is do you already believe that your product or service is better than your competitors or unique in some way? If that's the case, then people can almost always charge more.
Absolutely. So what are some of the ideas or techniques or things that you say to a founder when they go like, yeah, but the tariff and this and this and that, but I know my value and it should be this, but how do you get them to overcome those internal barriers of, I'm not, yeah, I shouldn't charge enough?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is requesting of them to try it. And so if I'm speaking to an individual entrepreneur, which at Boost we don't necessarily, we have some online training for entrepreneurs, but obviously this is actually more just a passion of mine to speak to individuals. So I had a call last week with an entrepreneur who does DE&I training, and her biggest roadblock to asking for more was being fearful of rejection, right? And so this idea that they're going to come back to me and ask me to sharpen my pencil, or they're going to ask me to lower my price. And so some of it is just saying you have to be prepared for that. So if you have a structure in place to prepare yourself for quote unquote worst case scenario and also reveal that it's really not. So I take this as an example. If someone is coming back to you and saying, I need this to be less expensive, I like to think of that as an opportunity. If they thought that you were the most expensive solution and not the best solution, they would not come back to you. They would go work with the less expensive, better solution, right? So if someone comes to you and says, I want to work with you, but your price is too high, acknowledge the fact that they want to work with you. And there's huge opportunity and power in that. And so you can say, that's amazing. Tell me what about my proposal or my product or my service makes you want to work with me as opposed to someone else, and then unravel and reveal the value there and have that be a baseline understanding, and then understanding, having tools and resources at your fingertips to say, is there something that I can take out that's not of value to you so that I can meet your budget, right?
It's a good one. Absolutely. What's your take on discounts?
I don't mind a discount. I mind unstrategic discounts. So there are opportunities for strategic discounting, but similar to what I was just saying, we love to play the give to get game. So the analogy there is you can have your cake, but I'm going to take the sprinkles if you want a discount. So and it can be something small and it can be something relatively intangible. So, for instance, a solo entrepreneur who's selling time for money, if you're playing that game of consulting, a really great one as you're building your business is to say, I can discount to win the business or meet X, Y, or Z expectation. But I would request that you put a great review on my website and make a referral. For the delighted services that you're going to get at the end of this, right? So it doesn't have to be something that even costs that person money, but it's asking for something in return for a discount. I think if you're discounting seasonally or you're discounting just because it's the end of your quota or your monthly quota or things like that, I think that you're signaling to the buyer that you were not as valuable as the price you were asking for in the first place.
Right. Right.
Right.
I mean, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. I mean, we all, get discounts on clothes or whatnot. And, even yesterday I bought from a company that I never bought before, and immediately it pops, oh, 20% discount. But I can see, I mean, this is different on merchandise, but I'm wondering about that tactic. I mean, I think the tactic is like, they want to, I'm online, they can't really talk to me, and then they pop this 20%, so then it will impulse me into buying it and get the percentage, right? I mean, I think, but it still doesn't, I don't know if it's necessary even for first time buyers.
Yeah, I think again, this goes back to if you can be strategic with pricing. So if you are an e-com business selling a widget or an article, you might not have that strategic conversation. You might not know what's valuable to the individual on the other side. And so tapping into impulse purchases makes sense to a degree. Again, I think there's probably other ways and probably plenty of brands who have found opportunity to capture clientele without discounting, even on a consumer side. And also, I will say I'm not a B2C expert by any means, so that aspect of it is a little more foreign to me. I think realistically, when you're talking about B2B services and the type of relationship driven selling that I love and that I get really passionate about, there's almost always opportunity to have a discussion that does not result in a discount.
Yeah, I agree. So
Mhm.
Alex, you said you don't work with individuals, you work with groups.
For the most part, I think that like realistically that's where the big opportunity is. Though I like to poke fun at entrepreneurs and especially visionaries because they're oftentimes a cheap discount officer. That's what I call them. They get so excited and so passionate about solving someone's problem that then they're like, I'll just give you this and this and this and this. And then all of a sudden they're like buying clients. So you have to be careful about that. But I also think that individuals and the closer it is to the founder, the easier it is to sell the value story, right? And so teams, as they start to grow and become a little bit more disconnected from the visionary, which is just the evolution of most business growth, they need the support that we provide to say, this is why it's valuable, this is where there's opportunity, and this is how you tell the story. And so that's where we've really leaned. Most of our content that's out in the world is still applicable to the solo entrepreneur. But the structured training that we do as a brand is really more focused on leveling up a team of sales professionals so that they can take over that role from the visionary who's still selling or still managing and still got their hands in everything. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're all about processes and systems and documenting the processes and creating procedures, etc. So it seems to me like, from my experience, that has to be, there is a process on how to price. There is a process on how to discount if that's what you think you want to do. There is a process on how to present it. What's your take on it?
Yes to all of those things. Um, I think that like a lot of that is in the hands again of the like pricing strategy aspect of it. But I'll sort of go around your question and say there's also a strategy and a process to ultimately make sure that your sales professionals are executing on that strategy.
Yeah.
And so, and that's again, that's kind of where the blue to my flame is. And so, speaking to that, there's so much process and documentation that can be done within the sale that allows people to ask for a higher price, and again gives them the tools and resources, right? And so, I think when I think about things like that, it's making sure that your team is armed with knowing that it doesn't hurt people to ask for a discount. People will in B2B especially are going to ask for something to be discounted. It's cultural, right? And oftentimes in other cultures outside of the US, it's even more traditional to ask for a discount or expect one. And so setting up the tools for the team to have to manage that and to say, this is where you can play. If you do feel like a discount is necessary, here's the rules around it. And also, here's your worksheet on price objection management. Make it personal and make it your own, but this is how we handle it in our business, right? Or this is the documented process on how we communicate a price increase broadly to our clients, and the tools that individuals have when they have to field those phone calls when the price increase goes out.
I think it's brilliant. Yeah,
So
these
there's
are the
aspects.
systems.
Yeah, exactly. There's aspects of it that kind of carry through of like, we want everyone to understand, if you're running on EOS, the VTO, we want everyone to understand the mission and everything behind the brand. But when, tire hits the road and they're sitting in front of someone else, do they have quick documented resources at their fingertips to say, this is what I do in this situation? And there's less decision making to be done there, then it's better, right?
Absolutely. So if companies want to reach out to you, what questions should they ask? It indicates that, yeah, I need to reach out to Alex today.
Yeah, thank you for that question. If you are a business owner or a sales team leader with people on your team who struggle with communicating the value, or if they're discounting more than you want them to, or you're looking at next year and saying, I feel like I should be at a higher margin, but I'm worried my team can't execute and capture it for me, then I promise you we can help.
Awesome. And how can they get a hold of you?
I would love from your network a personal email, write to me. So alex@boostpricing.com.
Fantastic. Alex, thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast. It's been a very eye-opening conversation, and that's definitely an area that needs to be tackled because that's how you can have higher margin and be successful. So thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.